In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, welcome to another session of Finding God. We are on the last 20 odd verses of Surah Al An'am, the cattle. So, this is part 5. After this, we'll be starting Surah As Safat, which means the order or things that are arranged in an order. And there's also a long ish chapter. More often than not, now, all the chapters would be of this length, so they'll be divided into multiple parts. Initially, I had thought about just doing one chapter per video. Some chapters are over 250, 280 verses, and just get through it. But the goal here is not to get through the Quran. You can find countless videos online and on TV where people have read the Quran and they just read through it and they have a certain expertise of it. I haven't seen much content on the Quran being arranged in the order of revelation, which I'm doing here. So I'm covering each chapter in terms of the revelation order. So it shows an idea developed from its conception to its completion. And, and I'm doing a rationalist reading of it. So I'm trying my best to maintain my rational faculties along with my faith-based thought process, so to say. I'm trying to keep them both together. I'm not just saying, oh, God says so, therefore I agree with it. The faith-based foundation in me would say that. But as a rationalist, I am trying my best to question, to scrutinize, to understand, to place, to contextualize, and so forth. So that's why I'm not rushing it. I'm not just running through it and saying, okay, it's done, let's move forward. So it's just 20 verses or so. If there's a footnote, I will read it here as well. So let's start. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We're talking about sheep last time, if you may recall. 8 pairs of sheep, 2 male, 2 female. About the wombs, what is forbidden, what isn't. That was the discussion. So now it goes on to this. Here. And of the camels 2, male and female, and of oxen 2, male and female, say, has he forbidden the 2 males or the 2 females or the young, which the wombs of the 2 females enclose, or were you present when God ordered you such a thing? Then who does more wrong than one who invents a lie against God to lead mankind astray without knowledge? Certainly God guides not the people who are zalimun, the polytheist and the wrongdoer. So I have to say, these verses are a bit hard to understand. They're a bit clandestine. They're a bit obscure. Let's read it without the brackets. And of the 2 camels and 2 ox, has he forbidden the 2 males or 2 females, which the wombs of the 2 females enclose? Or were you, or the young, or were you present when God ordered you such a thing? So it's talking about what is forbidden and what is allowed, and people inventing what is forbidden and what is permitted. If you go back to the last week's lecture, you'll see that this thought process was developing. So I think that's what's being talked about. But the message here is that there is no greater wrong than one who invents a lie against God to lead mankind astray. And I have to say, that doesn't only apply to non-Muslims. There are certain non-Muslims of any religion, or even atheists, who would say things that align with Islam. If they're saying that, they're not leading people astray from the message of Islam. It's the people who are creating lies against God. So something along the lines of, oh, God said do this, or I've read this and I've heard this. Maybe that sort of thing. Or expanded further. Oh, I am aware of this teaching and you are not, and therefore I can tell you this. Just trying to satisfy your own ego, but in the process, you are leading people astray. So whether it's if a Hindu says revere your parents, because that's in Indian culture, that's a very common thing. You, it's not worship, but it's near worship. The English language is flawed here. Ashirwad is a term that you hear in the Hindu parlance, and that is to take blessings. But you take blessings by touching their feet. So you bow down to touch their feet, and then they give you blessings. If a Hindu says to a Muslim, take care of your parents and revere them, he's not leading the Muslim astray. In fact, he's leading him closer to Islam, even closer to Islam. So I don't think this means that. This means people who are deliberately leading people astray. That would be my point. Say, O Muhammad, I find not in that which has been revealed to me anything forbidden to be eaten by one who wishes to eat it, unless it be my tah, a dead animal, or blood poured forth by slaughtering or the like, or the flesh of swine poured forth. What does that mean? Or the flesh of swine, pork, for that surely is impure or impious, unlawful meat of an animal which is slaughtered as a sacrifice for others than God, or has been slaughtered for idols, or on which God's name has not been mentioned while slaughtering. But whosoever is forced by necessity without willful disobedience, nor transgressing due limits, for him certainly your Lord is oft forgiving, most merciful. Let me elaborate. A dead animal, so if you see a camel that is dead in the desert, according to Islam, you can't eat it. The Muslim doctors have certainly found medical reasons for that too, which substantiates the position somewhat. Blood poured forth by slaughtering. Now that's interesting, because when Muslims slaughter an animal, that blood pours forth. But here, the indication is if the name of God has not been pronounced or recited, Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah, if it's not been recited while the slaughtering is done, don't eat that. Because from our perspective, it has not been venerated to something that can be eaten by pronouncing the name of God. The name of God is the strongest instrument to venerate anything, right? So you can't do that. And pork, obviously. In Islam, there's a very strong stance on anything swine related. Pork, bacon, chorizo. There's a few others that I've come across. You can't eat any of them. You can't touch them. You can't eat them. Well, you can touch them if you need to, but you can't eat them. They're considered unclean. And Islam is one of the central tenets of Islam is cleanliness. So you can't eat that. So I think that's what's being said here. But whosoever is forced by necessity without disobedience, God is forgiving. For example, if there's a gun to your head, you can be all zealous and religious and say, I shall not eat a single bite or drink, like in movies. Or you could say, okay, I'll eat this now and I'll beg forgiveness later because my Lord knows. And both of them are right. The zealot is right and the pragmatist is right. They're both correct. And unto those who are Jews, we forbade every animal with undivided hoof. Okay. And we forbade them the fat of the ox and the sheep, except what adheres to their back or their entrails or is mixed up with the bone. Thus we recompense them for their rebellion. Committing crimes like murdering the prophets and eating of riba, usury, and verily we are truthful. I am not familiar Oh, usury, interest rates. Oh, okay. That's a very interesting way of saying it. Eating off riba, eating off usury, charging high interest rates on loaned money. Banking. Interesting. But I like the detail. Undivided hoof is forbidden. So fat of the ox and sheep can't be eaten except from the back or the entrails or mixed with the bone. That's interesting. It's so interesting why it's so detailed. Why is it so detailed? It's so interesting to me. Um, to the Jews, 5,000, 4,000 years ago, doctors weren't really a thing. You'd have medicine men, you'd have somewhat akin to an apothecary or a hakim, a medicine man, as they used to say. So perhaps they were unaware of the repercussions of eating certain types of meat. It's always possible. I'm trying to understand why it's in so much detail. Anyway, if they, the Jews, belie you, Muhammad, say your Lord is the owner of vast mercy, and never will his wrath be turned back from the people who are mujrimun, the criminals, the polytheists, the sinners. Vast mercy. Those who took partners in worship with God will say, if God had willed, we would not have taken partners in worship with him, nor would our fathers, and we would not have forbidden anything against his will. Likewise, belied those who were before them, they argued falsely with God's messenger, till they taste our wrath. Say, have you any knowledge, proof, that you can produce before us? Verily, you follow nothing but guess, and you do nothing but lie. Interesting. See, it's interesting to me that the verses are not straightforward. If not the whole chapter, at least after the 100 mark, they've become slightly longer, paragraph-like, and they're very much turned in themselves. Right? There's full stops and there's multiple. So they would question the messenger. Essentially, that's what's being said. And they're saying, well, if God didn't want it, why did he do it this way? It's a very similar logic to how people say, well, if there was a God, why is there so much suffering in the world? Try to move beyond the variable. Look at the concept. I always tell people, idiots focus on the variable. The smart look at the concept. Look at the concept about this, not the variable. So it's that kind of a logic here. Well, if he didn't want any partners, he would have told us. No, it's not about that. It's about the human experience, the journey, the free will, or the somewhat illusion of free will. Because free will is free till a limit. It's not free infinitely. So, in fact, free will is the wrong term, because free implies no limits. So perhaps that's a word that can be revised. But so it's about those people, and the reference is given. Well, ask them to look at the people before them. Just give them a reference, because try to think. At this time, we didn't really have books. We didn't really have a lot of material to say, well, let me tell you what I've been talking about. Look at this. We didn't really have that. It was all argumentation, verbal. See, now I'm trying to understand more and more why it wasn't evidence-based like our thinking is today, nearly 1400 years later. Today, the Chinese invented paper. I think Gutenberg or whoever invented printing. We can replicate a lot of books on a large scale. Now we have the internet. Now we have digital reading instruments. We have all of that. But 1400 years ago, at the time of the prophet, or Jesus, prophet Jesus, or Moses, or whoever, you didn't really have written words. So you didn't say, well, let me show you. Let me bring you my book. Look, this book says this, so I can prove you wrong. We didn't really have that. It's so interesting that now I'm grasping that more and more. So the argumentation or the evidence-based logic was also different. It was less about, look, I can turn wine into water or water into wine. And they say, oh, that's sorcery, that's magic. So you don't adopt that line of reasoning. You adopt the approach of, well, look what happened to your mother. Well, look what happened to your great 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 grandfather. Look what happened to the people of Israel or Bethlehem or wherever. Look what happened to those people. So I think that's I'm understanding it more. Say, with God is the perfect proof and argument, the oneness of God, sending his messengers and his holy books to mankind. Had he so willed, he would indeed have guided you all. Say, bring forth your witnesses who can testify that God has forbidden this. Then if they testify not you, O Muhammad, with them. Don't testify with them. And you should not follow the vain desires of such as treat our verses as falsehoods, as such as believe not in the hereafter, and they hold others as equal in worship with the Lord. So, if they do testify, don't do it with them. Don't accept that they treat our verses as false. Don't believe in the hereafter, and they hold equals to God, like partners to God. Interesting. Oh, so don't testify with them and then say this. Say, come, I will recite what your Lord has prohibited you from. Join not anything in worship with him. Be good and dutiful to your parents. Kill not your children because of poverty. Okay, we provide sustenance for you and for them. Come not near to al-fawahish, shameful sins, illegal sexual intercourse. And illegal is defined in detail in Islam, whether open or secret, because God sees all. And kill not anyone whom God has forbidden, except for a just cause. This is so beautiful. This he has commanded you, that you may understand. Let's try this again. One and only God, dutiful to parents. Do not kill your children because of poverty, because you will be taken care of. No al-fawahish, no shameful sins like illegal sexual intercourse, openly or secretly, and don't kill anyone except for a just cause if God has forbidden it. It's so interesting. Oh, this is such a lovely verse. I could spend 10 minutes on this verse. Oh, such a lovely, lovely verse. Surah Al-An'am, chapter 6, verse 151. Please, if you could have a read through or dive deeper into this. It's a fantastic verse. Covers everything. Covers the basics, not about prayer or about fasting or charity or pilgrimage, but covers don't do this, do this, don't do this, do this. Lord has prohibited you from. It's beautiful. And then it goes further. And come not near to the orphan's property except to improve it, until he or she attains the age of full strength, and give full measure and full weight with justice. We burden not any person, but that which he can bear. That's true. This is one of the greatest truths of our lives. God never tests us beyond our limits. So this is a perfect example. And whenever you give your word, I judge between men or give evidence, say the truth even if a near relative is concerned, and fulfill the covenant of God. This he commands you, that you may remember. I'm just going to have a look if it's a detailed, no, it isn't a detailed footnote. No, it's very interesting to me. So, tell the truth even if it concerns a near relative. So perhaps that could even mean your mother. So testify with the truth even if it harms your mother. That's interesting to me. That's interesting. It's not shocking because truth prevails above all and sets us free. But I would be lying if I said that I wouldn't sacrifice the truth for my mother or my father. But that's perhaps an inconsistency that I have to resolve in myself. And verily this, God's commandments mentioned in the above two verses, is my straight path. So follow it and follow not other paths, for they will separate you away from his path. This he has ordained for you, that you may become al-muttaqun. So what was it? Don't hold equals to God. Be dutiful to your parents. Don't kill your children because of poverty. Don't do illegal sexual acts or illegal acts secretly or openly. And don't kill what God has forbidden unless for a just cause. Don't steal or mistreat the orphan and support them until they become strong enough. And speak the truth and for justice, even if it harms one of your family members. I think I have that correct. Have I missed anything? I'll give you one. Yeah, sure. Speak the truth. Exactly. Just 7 things. Then we gave Moses the book, the Torah, to complete our favor upon those who would do right, and explaining all things in detail and a guidance and a mercy they might believe in the meeting with their Lord. And this is a blessed book, the Quran, which we have sent down. So follow it and fear God. Do not disobey his orders, that you may receive mercy, be saved from the torment of hell. Lest you, the pagan Arabs, should say, the book was sent down only to 2 sects before us, the Jews and the Christians. And for our part, we were in fact unaware of what they studied. Exactly. This is for you. Look, there's a new book. So you can't blame ignorance. You can't hide. You can't stuff your head under the sand. Or lest you pagan Arabs should say, if only the book had been sent down to us, we would surely have been better guided than they, the Jews and Christians. So now has come unto you a clear proof, the Quran from your Lord, and a guidance and a mercy. Who then does more wrong than one who rejects the verses of God and turns away therefrom? We shall requite those who turn away from our verses with an evil torment because of their turning away from them. Tafsir al-Tabari. Interesting. So the argument is being made, well, if you were saying, hey, look, I have no access to a Torah or a Gospel or Bible. I don't have access to these books. If I did, I would have followed those even better than the Jews and Christians. I would have been better guided. So, okay, here's a Quran. Read this. Read this and then let me know what you think. So that's a very interesting argument. Do they then wait for anything other than the angels should come to them, or that your Lord should come, or that some of the signs of your Lord should come? Portents of the hour example, rising of the sun from the west. There's a whole other discussion. Perhaps I've had it mildly before. I can have it in more detail when it's explained. The day that some of the signs of your Lord do come. No good will it do to a person to believe then, if he believed not before, nor earned by performing deeds of righteousness through his faith. Say, wait, we too are waiting. It's a very long footnote. Oh, good God. Perhaps I should expand on this. I have to expand on this. I will be right back. Right. So we are Surah Al-An'am, verse 158. 158. Wow. It is a long one. Wait you, we too are waiting, it says, narrated by Abu Huraira. God's messenger said, the hour will not be established until the sun rises from the west, and when the people see it, then whoever will be living on the surface of the earth will have faith, and that is the time when no good will it do to a person to believe than if he believed not before. This is also in Sahih al-Bukhari 64635. Wow. So there is a cutoff. There is a time limit before which you can repent and ask for forgiveness and fix yourself. But after that line crosses, no sir. Narrated by Abu Hurairah, God's messenger said, when the following 3 signs appear, no good will it do to a person to believe then if you believe not before. So this is the cutoff. Rising of the sun from the west, the coming of Al-Masih ad-Dajjal, the big villain, the coming out of the Dabatul Ard, the beast from the earth. Sometimes it's so scary. And this is in Sahih Muslim, the book of Fitan, the signs of the coming of the hour. Narrated by Anas, the Prophet said, no prophet was sent, but that he warned his followers against the one-eyed liar, Al-Masih ad-Dajjal. So the Dajjal, Antichrist, sometimes people use that. He has multiple names. Beware, he is blind in one eye, and your Lord is not so, and there will be written between his eyes the word kafir, disbeliever. And this hadith has been quoted by Abu Hurairah and Ibn Abbas, Sahih al-Bukhari 97131. Very interesting. This is very interesting. And then it goes, verily those who divide their religion and break up into sects, all kinds of religious sects, you, Muhammad, have no concern in them in the least. Their affair is only with God, who then will tell them what they used to do. And the footnote here says, it is said that the Prophet recited this verse and said, these people are those who invent new things. It's called bid'ah or bid'at in religion, and the followers of the vain desires of this Muslim nation. Their repentance will not be accepted by God. It has been narrated in the hadith book, Tirmidhi, Ibn Majah, and Abu Dawud, that the Prophet said, the Jews and the Christians will be divided into 71 or 72 religious sects, and this nation will be divided into 73 religious sects, all in hell except one, and that one is on which I and my companions are today, following the Quran and the Prophet's Sunnah, the legal ways, orders, acts of worship, and statements. That's why the 2 billion Muslim majority, if you divide it into 73, not taking weights in account, if you divide it into 73 equal parts, then 72 out of 73 of those 2 billion are not Muslims on the right track on the Day of Judgment. We don't know when that day is coming. But with this logic, you see what I'm saying? The concentric circles of the Muslim demographic, it doesn't matter how large it's getting, because the center isn't increasing. That center is still one of 73. It's either a center or a fringe. Let's say center because it's closest to the religion, and all others are not going into heaven until repented or whatever. That's what this verse was saying. Isn't that interesting? That's a scary thought to think. I'm just going to do a very quick comparison. What is 72 divided by 73? And then you multiply it by 2 billion. 1,972,602,739. Point blah, blah, blah. So let's say only 30 million. Less than 30. 25 million Muslims. Right? Yeah. 25 million Muslims out of the 2 billion. That's a tiny, tiny number, isn't it? That is a tiny number. My Lord, please keep us all on the right track. This is scary. Whoever brings a good deed, Islam, and deeds of obedience to God and his messengers shall have 10 times the like thereof to his credit, and whoever brings an evil deed, polytheism, disbelief, hypocrisy, shall have only the recompense of the like thereof, and they will not be wronged. Say, O Muhammad, truly, my Lord has guided me to a straight path, a right religion, the religion of Abraham, Hanifa, the true Islamic monotheism, to believe in one God. Hanifa? God, to worship none but God, and he was not of al-mushrikun. Why does it say Hanifa? Oh, Hanifa, not Hanafi. Sorry, I'm mixing between words. I thought it was relating to one of the scholars. Yeah, it says Hanifa. Yeah, it's different. Say, O Muhammad, verily my prayer, my sacrifice, my living and my dying are for God, the Lord of the Alameen. Oh, what a verse. Wow, what a verse. Verily, my prayer, my sacrifice, my living and my dying are for God, the Lord of the Alameen. Wow. He has no partner, and of this I have been commanded, and I am the first of the Muslims. Yes, sir. Say, shall I seek a Lord other than God, while He is the Lord of all things? No person earns any sin except against himself only, and no bearer of burdens shall bear the burden of another. Then unto your Lord is your return, so He will tell you that wherein you have been differing. Okay, yeah, this is about personal responsibility. This is about individuality. That's an easy to understand verse. And it is He who has made you generations, coming after generations, replacing each other on the earth. That's true. And He has raised you in ranks, some above others, that He may try you in that which He has bestowed on you. Surely your Lord is swift in retribution, and certainly He is oft forgiving, most merciful. That brings me to the end of this chapter, Sadaqallahu Azim. What a long chapter. But what an interesting one, to be very frank. It's 165 verses, is no cakewalk. This thing at the end is something that I would want to meditate further upon. And it says, verse 163, chapter 6, He has no partner, and of this I have been commanded, and I am the first of the Muslims. That's very interesting to me, because there's a belief in sections of the Muslim community that everyone is a Muslim and led astray. But if Prophet Muhammad is saying that he is the first of the Muslims, then that means Islam starts after him. So the people before him, I don't know, it doesn't seem to align. It doesn't seem to align accordingly. But anyway, I'm going to stop here. We have succeeded. We have finished chapter 6, or sorry, chapter 55 in terms of revelation, chapter 6 in terms of arrangement, Surah Al-An'am, and next week we will start Surah As-Saffat, chapters 56 in terms of revelation, and lots of lovely stories in that as well. But it's also a long chapter, so it will be divided into further sections. Thank you so much. Have a lovely Friday.